What's up, family? Welcome to Men vs. Ego, episode 13, the Paranormal and Esoteric. Today I got a special guest. She happens to be my own family member. She gave life to me, which me and her both kind of share experiences on this. And you might say, well, how does this talk about personal growth? We'll get there. But I'm glad to have her on the show. I love her to death. And without further ado,
Well, first of all, thank you for the very welcoming. I want to thank you for letting me be part of your podcast. Anything to help you. And, you and I have what we're going to talk about in common because as you were a child, we used to love to scare you. Remember, with scary stories and things that would happen. So I think that's how you got, and my dad, that's how you got involved in wanting to know more about paranormal activities and tarot cards and candles and sayings and santeros and paleros and etc.
Exactly. It did spark a curiosity in me that made me want to know more. But not everybody can handle that, right? But let's start off by the introduction and say why the paranormal and esoteric matter in one's own personal growth. What do you think that is?
That's in our culture. I think that's in our culture because that's how we're raised. Being Catholic, I'm raised Catholic. Well, when you're raised Catholic, there's good and there's evil. And then there's something that's in between with some supernatural activities. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So, and I think being from a Hispanic background, and Mexico wasn't as civilized. It was civilized, but we still had your rural towns where they had folklore stories, and everybody had a story to say of what happened to fulano, mangano, sultano. You know what I mean? Like, no te vayas para allá porque te va a agarrar la llorona. Don't do this because allá está el diablo, stuff like that. So that's how we grew up. So I think it's in our culture to talk about this stuff and practice. Some people practice them. Some people, I believe there's good and evil.
Of course.
Right now I didn't wear my red bracelet, but I'm always wearing a red bracelet to keep the negative people away.
Is there a red bracelet with the cross of San Benito?
Well, you can wear San Benito, but it depends. San Benito has different, si está San Benito en una cruz con la circle around him, that's for him to protect your house and protect everything. But if te dan más San Benito, you give those to control your partners, stuff like that. So each saint has a purpose and how to help everybody, but you have to know everything just behind every saint. You can use a saint to do different things, either good or bad. And a saint can be good and it protects your house. But I'm Spanglish girl, so I'll go from Spanish to English so easy,
Disclaimer.
But so in some people, like they'll give you a charm with a saint, but that might have another meaning. Yeah. Like they're thinking they're protecting you, but no, it's like they're putting handcuffs on you so you don't go nowhere else. I don't know. It's a long story. We don't want to drag into that right now. We want to make sure stay focused and positive and grow with it.
Of course. No, I would say 100% I agree with you. You say the folklore of Mexico, which La Llorona, everybody knows that from the East Coast or the West Coast. If you're Hispanic, if you grew up in a Hispanic household, you grew up La Llorona. The whining girl, it's usually by the lakes or the rivers, and you hear her whine and, sometimes scream.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Sorry for interrupting. You know where I live here in Wisconsin, down the street, it's the river. 2 blocks from my house, right?
Yeah.
So my husband once in a while goes to Mexico and he leaves me alone and he'll leave in the summer. In the summertime, I love having my windows open, right? And you know me, I can hear good. I can still see good, so I was in bed in my room and I had the windows open, but I never in my life heard the scream or the crying before. And I'm 99.9% sure it was La Llorona. I've heard her. It was like 3:00 in the morning. That cry woke me up. And I tell people around here, nobody believes me. And it was horrible. It was like, it woke me up from a sleep that I heard this. And then I you get up and you're like scared. And then you start praying. And then you try to go to sleep.
It's funny that you say that.
That happened to me.
I'm more of a believer than most people, and if that happened to you, that happened to you. Probably change your perception on certain things like, oh, dang, is that really what I'm hearing? But for personal growth for me, like, I remember there was a time when I was like 13, 14, and you were there, you were probably in a different room, but it's when our mother passed, right? And I get a phone call. I get a phone call on my dad's phone. My dad's in the restroom. We just got word. Everybody's in the hotel. We're getting ready to go back up to the hospital and pay our respects and everything and talk to the people that we need to talk to. All of a sudden, the phone rings. Who picks it up? Me. Who is it? My mother, who just passed away. What does she want? She was trying to find my dad in a very frantic way. She was asking for him in Spanish, of course. And I was like, what's happening? And for me, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, I was like, whoa. Okay, so I rushed to get my dad. Dad's like, here, it's mom. He's like, what? What do you mean it's mom? I'm like, yeah, dad's mom. And of course, he put him to the phone and he starts freaking out too. I believe that we got a recorder from my uncle that was staying with us, or my godfather that was staying with us. And that's how we recorded her speaking on the phone. And then it just cuts off. But no rhyme or reason. It was an unknown number, but I swear up and down, like, that was the first paranormal thing I ever experienced.
No, I was going to say, I heard the message. I heard when mom said, Gordo, ¿dónde estás?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. But was it 10 years now? 10 years since he passed away?
Yeah, it's gonna be 10.
Yeah, 10 years. So that's another thing too. But we're kind of deviating off topic, but let's bring it back. Chapter 2, expanding perceptions and breaking personal beliefs. Like, how would you explore these topics about the paranormal and the esoteric? I know that some people are stuck in their ways, like, oh, I don't want to do that. No, it's bad juju, or it's just not in my culture. Like, how would you explain to the skeptics, I guess?
Well, let me get off track a little bit, because at the beginning I said it's part of our culture, but the more I'm here and I hang around other nationalities, they do more stuff than the Mexicans. You don't know how many earth and wind songs stores are around that sell sage and Palo Santo and all these crystals. And these are not by Hispanic or Latino community. And I think it's a combination, because, when I started, for me, it was because that's how I was brought up with my dad and my mom, simply saying stories about this and this, or right now there's a lunar eclipse. They go, make sure you're wearing a safety pin, make sure you're wearing something red, or go downstairs, especially when you were born during an eclipse. My mom had me down in the basement for 2 days because she didn't want the eclipse to harm you. I don't know if it did, but that's a different topic, right?
Yeah, it's a different topic.
But, it's funny because how many times I drive and they say psychic readings everywhere. So it's not just a Hispanic that I thought it would be, but that's how I brought it. That's how I am, because it was my growing up like that. But now that I'm adult, I see a lot of other cultures that do it, when they have their Buddha and they have their offerings to them, or any other culture that believes in their God or whatever they do. But people wearing stones, like I mentioned the red bracelet, but I see a lot of people wearing crystals. So I guess it's in all our cultures. Look at, like, if you go to, a lot of that came from Africa, like the Cubanos are more into Santeria, paleros, and because that's in their culture, they came from Africa. It's a little mix of different, La Caridad del Carmen, La Yamele, and all these other goddess, so Bacala. But like you're saying, I think everybody, I don't care what culture, nationality you are, I think they all believe in paranatural activities, and they also believe in protecting their auras, chakras, all that. So it's something that we all believe in, but sometimes people want to hide it because they don't want to be seen like, oh, you're a witch, oh, you believe in that stuff, or, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the 1600s anymore, where people get
we're not going to get
they're not going to get thrown in the river. Exactly, you're going to get burned at the stake. Exactly. So, people are more open to things like this. And for me, in my previous episode, I spoke to one of my friends, and he was Catholic, but before that, he knew about the Orishas of Africa. He knew about
that little shell. I know what that is.
Yeah, he knew all about that. We would go to spiritual shops in Chicago. I think it's episode 11 on on Men versus Ego, but I digress. I do agree with you 100% on how people from different cultures, different nationalities have their own little knickknacks in the paranormal and esoteric type of deal. And we grew up with this, right? We grew up from kids all the way up. We will use some of these stories, correct me if I'm wrong, we will use some of these stories to kind of similar, or if the kids are being, acting up or anything at the family party or at a place, hey, te va a dar la mano peluda,
El
like
cucuy.
el cucuy, and it's just like, well, nobody wants to be touched by, like,
Cucuy.
yeah, exactly. So thank you
But
for
let me tell
sharing
you
that.
something before we go on. I'm sorry for making this longer.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it's all whatever you believe that would work for healing you or protecting you.
I think, and thank you for sharing that. But I think being open to it, it kind of opens your mind to a whole different new realm that you don't even know existed. Especially when you get older, when you become an adult, and you actually want to learn about this type of esoteric, paranormal things. Like, people have been taking videos of ghosts since cameras were invented. Like, oh, what's that? That person wasn't there. Or voice recordings, electronic voice phenomenons, EVPs.
Mhm.
A perfect example was the one I gave you earlier about mom. So you talk about saints, and thank you and I think that hit the spot on the personal growth, how each nationality has their own take on this.
Mhm.
Let me deviate a little bit and say you mentioned saints. Do you remember the book that our dad had about El Libro de San Cipriano, the book of Saint Cyprian? Quick history lesson. Saint Cyprian was a sorcerer back in the day who tried to conquer a young woman's heart for somebody else. Somebody came and asked him, hey, Cyprian, can you conquer this woman for me? And Cyprian was a well-known sorcerer around that time. I think it's now modern-day Turkey area, around there. And he's like, yeah, sure. So he conjured up his legion of better words demons, because that's what they were. And like, hey, I need you to do this job for me because this man wants me, and he paid already. He paid his dues. He paid me in coins or gold or whatever that was. And then one by one, every spell that he would do, the the demon would come back and say, hey, Cyprian, I can't do it. I can't help you, bro. I mean, what do you mean? I'm your master. I'm the one that conjured you here. We can't touch her because she's protected by the Most High. He's like, well, if you're not the strongest, basically, if you're not the strongest, then I don't want to be with you guys. So he converted to Christianity. But all of his teachings were somehow like found throughout the ages and replicated. And now it's known as the Book of St. Cyprian. But he basically joined Christianity because the other team, the bad team, wasn't strong enough to conquer one person that was protected by the Most High. So I find that
Well,
very interesting.
the reason it's called the Book of San Cipriano because there's different Ciprianos. There's one from Italy, there's one from Colombia, and the Caspian. So it's over there by that area, the other side of the world. So that's why it's called, because San Cipriano también, it would be a saint for giving you power, giving you, que te ayude a salir de problemas también. Pero yeah, it was, I don't remember a lot of them, but I do remember San Ramon. Like if you had a lot of people, they would gossip about you, you would chew a piece of gum and you put a penny and then you put it on his mouth, and then everybody would stop talking about or spreading rumors about you or your family.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. If you go to any spiritual metaphysical store, they have candles for each and everything that you want. Either it be bring her to me, bring him to me, or lucky number 7, bring me more money, or like you say, tapabocas, right? Closed mouths. Don't speak no ill of me. And when I lived in Chicago, I would go to these stores and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you could just feel the stuff in there, the energy, the vibes. People at grocery stores, and they would buy a lot of things for their own use.
They would have black chickens and goats in those stores too for people who did santeria.
Disclaimer: I don't know. I haven't seen it personally, but just put it out there. I haven't seen that personally, but I know that there is in some sketchy places.
The back rooms in the basements,
yeah, there's probably some sketchy places with that, but you got to pay. And yeah. How did you ever have a spiritual and psychological transformation growing up? That anything like changed the
No, I just
way?
know that maybe when I was younger, I think I was more connected. Because as I was growing up in my life, my parents, I always felt that everybody else loved me and God was always with me. I always felt that because until recently that I haven't been praising Lord, it's Dios. But
Yeah.
as I was growing up, it's unbelievable. That's why I'm telling you what happened to me. Whatever I wanted, I would get. Whatever in life I wanted, I would get. And I would always get it. And I think as people seeing, like I was the most luckiest girl in the whole world because Dios siempre estaba conmigo. I don't know how I always felt connected to God. As I was growing up, God was always with me. And there's were times in my life that I could have died. I lived away from home. I've been in car accidents. Look at me now. Nunca me ha pasado nada. Almas en penas, almas aquí, almas allá. That's why you see paranormal activities everywhere you go. Because right now I can be sitting here and I don't know how many other people sat in the same area where I'm sitting. The same in your house. You don't know how many people died. So there's millions of generations and years of people in this planet and this world that died. So there's so many paranormal activities everywhere you go. There's good and bad, but you just have to know what to do if you encounter a bad one. The good ones will always leave you alone. The bad ones, you need to seek help. All my life I spoke English because we were and now all I do is speak Spanish. So I'm lost in
Gotcha.
my vocabulary.
This,
If I
that's
lived in
fine.
Texas, it would be normal, but I'm in Wisconsin, so
Nah,
it's not
I
normal.
got you.
So don't be doing stuff that people don't know because you don't know if you're going to make spirit mad. Like people pray to the saints, but just praying to the saints, it's not going to help you because you know what? You ask for something, you get something they want something in return. And sometimes what they want in return is something you don't want to let go. So don't be practicing if you don't know the consequences.
100%. And matter of fact, from the research that I've done from that book, it says you have to be mentally prepared to handle what's in that book. Because if you're not, you're going to be tormented, in lack of better words, and not by the good guys. You got to be very careful. You got to be mentally strong. You got to be spiritually strong in that type of sense. Yeah. I got two questions for you though. You said back in the day when you were younger, you would be able to manifest anything you want, anything, right? My second question: how do people, in your opinion, overcome the fear of embracing the mystery involving the esoteric, the paranormal, the unknown, the occultism?
So I would ask or say I need this, and it would happen, and it happens so much. Your tia Elena. But your second question, can you repeat it for me?
In your opinion, how do people overcome the fear of embracing the paranormal, the mysticism? People who are scared, how for them to use it as a professional, personal development tool for growth?
I think at the beginning, vas a tener miedo. You're going to be scared. You're going to be scared because it's something new and you don't know what's going to happen or what's behind that door. You know what I mean? But once you have that energy or those spirits or whatever pushing you, you're not going to be scared no more because then you're going to see what nobody else can see. You know what I'm getting to? Like those activities or spirits or whoever you're trying to do, they're going to be behind you. You're going to be very scared because believe me, you're going to see things that you never seen in your whole entire life. You're going to have nightmares, vas a tener pesadillas, but in time, you're going to develop what you call like, how do I say it? Like a scab, and you're going to get used to it. And it's not going to face you. You're going to get used to it. You're going to hear noises. You're going to see spirits. You might see whatever. I don't know, spirits, people. And you're not going to be scared no more because when you go through that first step of doing all that stuff, you're going to see so many bad things you're going to be scared. But at the same time, that same thing is going to motivate you to not be scared no more. And you're not going to be scared no more. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. Are you speaking by personal experience on this, or are you just speaking for the betterment of the
It's
group?
both. I can be for personal and from what I've heard and seen.
Okay.
I have a little bit of personal experience and stuff like that. Because like you said, my dad being my dad, I grew up and I always was believe, I always did that stuff too. So yo ya sé como I know how that stuff is. Some people are born with it. Some people educate themselves. So it's better to be born with it because it's natural instead of being educated by books. We never really wanted to practice it or do anything. But every time somebody does that, and you get sicker and sicker. So we don't promote because people get sick. So you're getting people's negative energy. It's going through you, it's coming out.
Yeah. Well, I just got into, not too long ago, I had my own personal spiritual awakening, right? It hurt more than anything I have experienced in my life. And I've been through a lot, but nothing hurt me more than this. For some reason, and you know what I'm talking about. No need to beat a dead horse or speak, but I just like to point out that thanks to that, that's what I dove into rabbit holes after like the esoteric, the tarot cards, the
Twin
water,
flames.
the twin flames. Yeah, that's the thing. But the more I did research on it, your twin flame is there for your spiritual ascension. Let go of the physical person, focus on your spiritual ascension. That's the whole reason. But our human side's like, no, they're meant to be in this. No, they're there to catapult you into higher consciousness. And that's when you dig into hermeticism, into the occult, like reading people's vibes. I'm a big one on this. For some reason, I had the ability to walk in the room, not know anybody in the room, and point out who has this aura. Like, I'm not trusting you so much. I'm gonna lay back a little bit. That if it wasn't for the ascension, the going up, the hurt and everything, I don't think I would be there. And now I'm more into like numerology. If you start seeing these numbers, 134, 222, because the universe
11.
The universe doesn't speak in languages. The universe speaks in algorithms and numbers, kind of like a matrix in a computer. 001, 0011, 00111. Kind of like that. The more I pay attention to it, like now there's more people talking about numerology. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, no, I just wanted to share that real quick.
When you see the numbers like 111, you're supposed to say message received because that's the universe sending you a message, Every time you see those numbers, always say message received.
Well, see, there's not one set in stone of what they call them angel numbers, right? And there's not one. Some say 1111 is like, oh, make a wish. 1111. Make a wish? What? You said it earlier before. Anything you asked, it will given to you, right? Let me share my story on that real quick. There's no possible way I could ever live in Chicago, given my career choice. There's no way. Well, there is a way. And you know the way I'm talking about. The only way I could have gone to Chicago and live there like I wanted to for so long was I would have to leave my current job and have another extra job over there. But you know what job I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
But that was the only way. It took me 5 years, and I always have it in my back. I'm like, how would I imagine myself living in Chicago, downtown, walking the river walk, Lake Michigan, enjoying these fine restaurants, meeting people. It took me 5 years to actually make that come true. And I'm like kind of like you, like where I'm starting to figure things out on how to manifest things. But I think it's the impatience. I thought about it yesterday. Why isn't it here today? If I can manifest, I want it today. Well, it could take 6 months. It could take a year. It could be less than that. It could take more than that. You know what I'm saying? So it's that patience. It will come. Just relax. But anyway, I digress. Anything else to add before we move up to the next one?
No, I was just going to say it's patience, and it's also in the way you ask, it's the way you will get it received. So
yeah, believe that you have it already.
It's a circle. It's a complicated, but you just can't ask. There's certain ways of asking, and because you're just asking to ask, and God knows, no va a pasar. Pero si He sees everything, and you're asking, and He sees you, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
He's only gonna give you what you can handle.
That's pretty interesting. And everybody has their own beliefs and whatnot. But I would definitely say when you're thinking about somebody, let's say for example, right? And I had this happen to me plenty of times. I'm thinking about you. I haven't talked to you in months. Just an example. And all of a sudden, not even 2 seconds later, I get a phone call from you. Isn't that weird? Like,
Yeah, it
here I
happens to
am,
me the other day too.
here I am thinking about you, and I haven't talked to you in so long. And all of a sudden, my phone rings. How is that? It's like it's almost like a telepathic ability. Like we're all interconnected somehow energetically. Isn't that weird though? I just think that's funny.
No, I know because I did it to you the other day because I'm thinking I can't be that mean person and not call Tico. I have to call him.
I can't be
I
that
can't
mean
let you be
person.
calling me all the time.
Of course, I can't be that mean person and not wish you happy birthday. So I guess there goes that. I know. But let's move this on. You think the paranormal and the esoteric things have a scientific prospect behind them? Like we can prove that this is why things happen, or we can prove that ghosts exist, or we can prove that divination, a medium, a medium, you go to a medium and they're like basically the middleman between this world and the other world, the higher realm, and they can like basically get messages from higher people, higher spirits, and then pass them through them. Do you think that can be like some science in that? Because it's been around for ages.
Like I said previous, you're born with it. You are born with that ability to read cards, see the future, or speak with the dead people. There's this guy in below that sees the spirits everywhere. But there's also people that read them. Okay. So I would go with somebody that's given that gift, not people who read, because there's called charlatanes, people that are just out there to get your money because the way they tell you stuff, they make a yes or no answer, and that's how they determine what they want to tell you. And a lot of people pay a lot of money for those people, and those people don't have that gift. They are learned or what they pick up or whatever they want because they see weak people and then they'll tell them what they want to hear, and people believe them. So on the scientific kind of face of that, I mean, yeah, there's ghosts. There's always been spirits. ¿Sí me entiendes? So how can you prove them? Well, you have those Ghostbusters. What are those guys? Ghost catchers. ¿Cómo se llaman?
Ghost hunters, ghost adventures.
They're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
around and see the activity lights. I mean, that's one way of proving them. But another way of proving them is when you're in your room, in your house, and you're sleeping and you feel somebody sitting next to you, or you feel somebody take the blanket off you. I mean, who's doing it? It's at least
100%. And I'm glad you reminded me because Dad passed away. I flew from halfway across the world, a 17-hour flight, all the way back here. That night I got back, I slept in his room.
His spirit was there. It's still fresh.
So check this out. I slept, and maybe like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours in, it was the middle of the night. It was nighttime already. I couldn't move. I had a thing called sleep paralysis. I never had an experience like that in my life. And in Spanish, it's called cuando se te sube el muerto. When the dead gets on you, right? And you feel like you can open your eyes, you can look around, but you can't move. It's like you're paralyzed. You can't scream. You can't talk. You can only move your thoughts in your head. But your hands, you can't move them. Your feet, you can't move them. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Instead of freaking out, I went inside. I started praying. And so that's when I woke up, and I'm like, wow, what was that? After that, I never went back. I never slept in bed. I would see cloaked figures. In the research that I did for the Book of Cyprian, it says to the reader, caution, warning. So in my head, I'm like, wow, okay, so who are these cloaked figures? I don't know. But then, things like that, it's like, it gives you the heebie-jeebies, like, what? It's almost like they were reckoning him to the afterlife already.
Dad said is because Dad read a lot of books and did a lot of reading of the cards and did a lot of that stuff. So that's why I stress to everybody who wants to do any of that stuff, you don't know how to do it, don't do it, because there's consequences. And maybe Dad promised one of those spirits or the goddess or whoever he talked to something. And so that's why they came for him, or that's why they were tormenting him because, hey, you're going to have to pay. They're coming for you. And maybe instead of them coming for one of us, came for him. Because like I said, if you ask, if you want to receive, you have to give. So nobody's going to do nothing for free. They're going to ask something in return.
Of course.
That's why when you go to all these altars, what do they have? Candles, flowers, waters. If you know your saint, every saint like San Ramon, if you want to give him a cigar, le das un cigarro. A Babalu, que es San Lázaro, le das cebollas. There's always ways, but you have to learn. You have to know what each saint, and like I said, and that's the real people that know how to do it, they're born with that gift. They're not taught.
No, they definitely have a dawn.
2 summers ago, you remember, Lucas, we were outside, and then there's a lot of Mexican folklore. And then in Mexico, they say la lechuza is a witch that turns into an owl. Remember?
Yeah, of course.
And my tree, and these people, when I told them what I had to say to that bruja so he can leave, they wouldn't believe me. And as soon as I went out and I said those words, salió el pájaro volando. We all screamed in the out. Look, I'm getting chills right now. And there's things que sí son ciertas. It just hasn't happened to anybody, so they can't. If you have a lot of people that testify, esto me pasó a mí, esto me pasó, this happened to me, this happened to me, then there are more people would believe. Especially if you're from a rural town in Mexico where a lot of that stuff happens. There's a lot of stories.
Especially if you're from Veracruz, la capital de los brujos. The capital of the witches, of the sorcerers in Veracruz, Mexico. You'll know what I'm talking about. But 100%, and I believe that's the 12 truths of the world translated. Yeah. Las 12 verdades del mundo. There's a special. Yeah, you have to know forward and backward. But on top of that, you have to have a special string, and for every truth that you do, you tie a knot, and then you tie another knot, and then you tie another knot.
And if once you get all the tie knots, what are you going to do? Let it loose, it's going to be worse. So that's why I'm telling people again, if you don't know how to do all this stuff, don't do it.
Yeah.
They'll show you in the books and what you have to say in todo.
100%.
Si lo haces, ¿qué vas a hacer? ¿Qué vas a hacer después? ¿Cómo vas a agarrar la lechuza y qué vas a hacerle? Tienen un encanto, and they're going to convince you, and they do nothing, you're going to let them free. And that's even worse. Everything has consequences.
Everything. I'm going to leave this off. Thank you so much for sharing that. About the story, and it's a story. It's not really a truth or anything, but I always like to tell the story, and I think it's a perfect time. The story of Macario. He was an old peasant man. Lived in a little shack with his family, and he would always come home, and you know the story. One day he brought a turkey home. The wife cut it in half. He would take it somewhere else, go eat it. Because he would always let his family eat first. He would basically go hungry every night. Long story short, he goes down the river. He meets a gentleman, kind of looks like, back in the old days, a robe and long hair and a beard. He's like, "Hey, Macario, give me some of that turkey." And Macario looks at him. He's like, "Nah, not you. You make the poor more poor. You make the rich more richer." Nah, I'm good. So he leaves that man. Goes on further down. Now here comes another man with a, very sophisticated look on his face, nice clothes. He's just thirsty. He's hungry. He's like, "Hey, Macario." He's like, "Hey, Macario, how about you give me some of that turkey? Sheridan, I got something for you." He's like, "Nah, not you. You're a big trickster. You say things and then you end up backstabbing people. I don't trust you." Okay. And so he goes up somewhere in the cave, and he's alone. Nobody's around him. And John, he's about to cut the turkey. A skinny man comes around. Third guy, skin and bones with a cane. He's like, "Hey, Macario, give me some of that turkey, man. I'm starving. I'm hungry." And he's like, looks around. He's like, "You know what? Yeah, I will. Rich, poor, young, old, doesn't matter the skin color. You take them all. Here you go, half for you." So he gives him half the turkey. And so in return, the old man's like, "Thank you so much, Macario. I owe you big time. Tell you what, get your little flask, little jug of holding water. Go down to that little creek. And with that water, you're going to heal a lot of people." Disclaimer, Macario, he said, "If you see me, my face, on the bottom of the bed or the edge of the bed,
I'm coming for you.
They're mine. You can't do anything about it. I'm sorry.
You can't. Yeah, I remember.
You can't do anything about it. They're mine. Don't even try to flip the bed because it's not going to work." He's like, "Oh, cool. All right, cool." So he goes back. He finds out that one of his kids fell in a well and he's sick. So he remembers what the old man does, and he gives him a little sip of water, and it's like a miracle. His kid heals. Wow. So now the town people start talking about it. He started helping out the town people, and sure enough, he's healing all these people with a little bit of water. So here's where things get interesting. The mayor of the city, right? He's like, "Hey, I'm actually sick. I don't know what to do anymore. I've been to every doctor. I paid all this money. I don't know what to do, and I hear that you're good at what you do. can you hear him? And my dad was like, yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. And so my dad would give us a bit of water. And what do you know? The old man's face was in the opposite side of what he told him. Hey, don't try it. He's mine. Don't do it. So he tried to flip the bed, and he still would flip the other way. He would try giving more water. It wouldn't change. And so when he told the mayor, he's like, hey, I can't help you. I'm sorry. The mayor, out of frustration, burns down his little hut and basically banishes him out of the city for not being able to help his son. Then he goes up back to the cave where he met that old man, and he sees a whole bunch of candles. And every candle is a life. He's like, hey, I didn't know you had this one candles. Like, yeah, every candle's a life. He's like, where's mine? His little candle was like this big. And he's like, well, I'm going to go get another candle, one of those Navina candles. And by the time he went to go over it, the ring came, he died right there. So that's the story.
This goes to prove that you don't know when your time is in this life either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes when you have something, God gives you power, everybody wants it too. Or they do something to look what they did to him because no podía. But, if he couldn't, he couldn't help him.
Yeah.
But I remember.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's not really based on facts, but it was more like a good movie. But anything else to add, Isabel? Anything that we forgot that you would like to have our listeners?
Well, I don't know if I hope I didn't go too much out of the subjects because I'm tend to do that. I forget, but if you put me back on track, hopefully I can answer the questions if I missed any or if I did not answer correctly. The tarot readings, the shells, the coffee grounds. If there's a lot of people that believe in that stuff, I would find somebody who's born with that, not taught. The gypsies were pretty good at reading people's hands, but you know what they say, between gypsies, you don't read your hands. Another gypsy cannot read your hand, and you cannot read another gypsy's hand. Entre gitanas no se leen las manos. So, like I said, it's because, the paranormal activities, the tarot readings, all that stuff. And it's been forever. It's been forever since the falling of the angels, because supposedly the angels taught the humans how to heal, how to do this and all that. That's all they came. They had good angels and bad angels. So that's why there's black magic and there's white magic and all these kind of magic. But my ¿cómo se dice? Consejo?
Your advice.
My advice to anybody out there that feels they want to get into paranormal activities or practice santeria or any of that stuff, please be careful. And you think it's doing it for fun? How do you think all these scary movies came to be? Remember Chucky? Doomba, foomba, doomba, boombella. It was a guy who went into the other, una muñeca and the doll. He was doing Jamaican or, I don't know what kind of magic.
Voodoo.
Voodoo, thank you. Voodoo, and look how he came out. But I'm just saying, there's people that do stuff like that. So just be careful.
Of course. Just be careful.
Just be careful. And also, if you sage your house, people sage their house, and then you burn palo santo, because there's un palo santo. Sometimes that stuff, if you have but if we start saging or doing all this stuff, and that bothers them, they're going to bother you. A lot of stuff will start happening. But if you don't know how to sage or how to use it, palo santo or all this stuff, don't do it if you're scared, because then you're going to live with spirits that are mad at you constantly.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for your wise words. I'm happy that you got on here.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, our stories. Got anything else?
No, well, thank you for having me on your podcast. Te deseo éxito. I wish you all the best in the world with your podcast. I wish you would get to 1 million, because you are a very special person. You're very kind-hearted and loving, and everybody that meets you loves you.